Hi, I'm Jane, BCBA and co-founder of ABAdesk. Welcome to the world's fastest tour/demo. So there are only two places to go in ABAdesk. There's the dashboard where you deal with client-specific programming, data collection, treatment planning, and all that fun stuff. And then here is the admin page where you would deal with kind of day-to-day operations like assigning clients to therapists, adding people to your team, adding on clients, and creating your company program database. You can also set up custom session notes, and I'll go over what that means in just a little bit. And then you can see there are two links here, and these are both external. So we have a knowledge base packed with articles, video models, and a bunch of information on how to really kind of get the most out of the system. And we have a support link. So in case something isn't doing what it should be doing or what you are expecting it to be doing, make sure you submit a support ticket and we'll get back to you in 24 hours. So ABAdesk is a browser-based service, which means you can use it on literally any device, big or small. So you're not limited by any specific operating system. As long as you've got a browser and internet connection, you're good to go. You can actually set it up start to finish on any device, and it's really easy to update. So we'll start off by going to the clients page. So this is where you would actually add in every single client that the company's working with. Your client maximum, this number here, is just however many clients you've prepaid for. I've got an unlimited plan, which is why it says unlimited. Otherwise, it would just say however many clients you've prepaid for. And you can have active clients up to whatever that number is. If you ever need to update it, you would just go to admin, go to account, and then go through the login prompt because it is an external link, and get everything situated there. And everything is prorated. So if you're in the middle of the month and adding on another customer, then it would be half the price because you're in the middle of the month, of course. So to add a client, you just hit the plus. See, we only required 3 fields. Let's hit save. If we wanted to kind of narrow it down, here it is in kind of our standard, private formatting of first 2, first 3. All right, after that, let's go to the therapist page, and this is where we actually add in anybody who's using the system. So to do that, again, you would just hit the plus, fill in the form. Your title is going to be the permission level within ABAdesk. If you go to the knowledge base, there's an article kind of going over all those specific permissions, but the gist is anyone with admin privileges can see this screen, with the exception of these last 2 options. Only the account holder can access those. And then admins can also access the dashboard. And then those with both lead or tech permissions can only access the dashboard, not the admin page. Leads can deal with client-specific programming in terms of, adding programs, modifying them, doing treatment plans, and so on, apart from obviously taking data and writing notes. And then those with tech permissions can essentially just take data, write notes, and everything else is pretty much view only, with the exception of they can go in and modify their notes if they have to. Alrighty, so next we'll go to the company programs. So this is where you would add in any programs that you're using more than one time, whether you're following a specific curriculum or an assessment, you can put all these in here. So if you're going to use it more than once, please put it here, even if you're going to use it in a slightly different way, because you can modify programs on a client-to-client basis when you add them to said client. And it's not going to impact anything on the company program side. They essentially split off and they're no longer related. So you can really individualize these programs. The program bank is going to come empty initially, so it's up to you to fill it, but each program takes no more than a minute to create. So you just hit the plus. We're not actually going to make one because it'll take a while. Well, not too long, but I want to show you how it works. So you just select a recording type. So you can see we offer duration, frequency, interval recording. These 3, you can use both for acquisition as well as behaviors for decrease. And then we also offer task analysis and trials for acquisition goals. So basically, whatever you select, the form is going to shapeshift into what it needs to be. You'll also notice if it's a behavior for decrease, you would select this right here, and the form would actually grow to include replacement behavior and function of behavior. And you'll notice every single program form is just one page, And a whole lot of this is not actually required. So if you already have big program binders with this information, you don't have to write it in. But if you do kind of want to ditch the binders or just kind of start, fresh, anything that you write in there can be accessed in your client session. So you can always kind of reference those, those fields to make sure that you're accurately taking data. All right, next we're going to move on to custom session notes. So here it's kind of like using Google Forms. So you can create a variety of different note sets, and you can use them for any reason. So you can just hit the plus. We're going to call it a note set, so we're just going to call it a demo note set. And then you'll go in and create whatever fields you want it to have. So if it's a short text field, we're just going to be lazy and call it a short text field. And then you can select that. You can add it, and then you can add even more. So you can really kind of do these for different funding sources, different situations, and then you can add as many of these note sets per client. It's really up to you. So over here, you're kind of just creating a bank of different options to choose from. So here, I'm just going to create, some multiple options to choose from. And you'll notice you've got two ways to do that. So you can use a drop down so they can select one of these many options, or you can select the checkbox. And then I'm just going to be lazy and call them options 1, 2, and 3, and then hit add. Then I'm going to save it, and it just kind of adds it to the pile. All right, after that, actually, let's go back to the therapist page. So here I'm actually going to assign a client to myself. I'm going to make sure that I have that demo client over there. So I'm just going to type it in to kind of narrow it down so I don't have to scroll. And then I'm going to move it over here and hit save. So now that client appears on my dashboard. So even as an admin, I will have to assign clients to myself. And this really kind of keeps your dashboard nice and clean so you only see what you need to. And now we can actually go in and add some programs to this client. So we're going to go to client programs. Whoopsies, wrong one. Okay. Oh, there it is, demo client. All right, so we're going to go to client programs, and to add a program, again, you hit the plus. You can add a custom program just for that client, or if you just want to add from the existing kind of company programs, then you would hit the plus. If you want to leave it as is, perfect, just scroll all the way down and hit save. But if you want to modify anything about it, like this is a trials program with, to teach colors. So in this case, I want to teach colors expressively. And then I can just save it. And then I can also teach colors receptively. So I can use that same list again, or that same program again, and just modify it slightly. And now I have, two kind of sets of lists and used in different ways, but they're both very similar, so it didn't take a whole lot of time at all. And then I'm just going to add one of each program type so we can see. So here's a task analysis, so I'm going to make sure that we only get one pump of soap as a correct response, for example, so we can again modify this however we want. And if we want to just jump straight into treatment, we don't want baseline, that's okay. So these are all actually optional phases. And these phase options are going to be the same across all program types. So I'm just going to say I only want to go into the treatment phase for here, and I'm going to select forward chaining. We will automate the transitions through the steps. All right, and hit save. And then after that, let's add playing with peers at recess. So this is an interval recording goal. We're just going to add it as is. And then vocal stereotypy, which is the duration one. And you can track multiple durations of a behavior. And we'll just kind of add up those values and compare it to that mastery criteria. If ever you're no longer working on a program, you can just archive it and it'll remove it from your session so it's not taking up really kind of valuable visual real estate. And now, before we actually start taking data, we're actually going to add some custom notes to this client. So if I opened up a session right now, you'd see Here are our standard note fields. So this is not something you have to go in and create. These are just going to be there. So bare minimum, you have a place to put session content, who was there, anything that, could be impacting behavior. You even have a field here to write a question for the supervisor. And the moment that you hit submit, whoever is assigned to the case that's a lead or an admin, they get an email with an alert letting letting them know that they have a question, so you can deal with things as quickly as they come up. And then you can even sign. If these fields are not enough, then we can go in and add those custom fields that we were talking about before. So only admin permissions can do this. So we're going to hit client data. We're going to go to custom notes. And then you can see we can add custom ones just for this client. I'm a custom client note field. Very exciting. And then we're just going to say that's a long text input. And then we can go in and add the demo notes that we made, for example. And all you're doing is you can cherry pick as much as you want. So if you want all of this, cool. If you also want to add something from funding source A, great. So really we can kind of bulk this up as much as we want to. Or if you're like, you know what, just kidding, I don't need this short text field, you can remove it. And you can do that at any point. You don't have to commit to the fields that you have in here. If later, down the line, you decide that these are not appropriate anymore, then you can modify those per client. All right, so now let's actually take some data. And this is probably kind of why you're all here. So we're going to start session. And again, this you can do on any device, big or small, and I'll show you in just a second as soon as all of our programs are shown. This little line right here kind of represents where your programs would be, and I promise they are here. They're just hidden until we input a valid start time and end time and date. So by valid, I mean we do require sessions to be submitted in chronological order, so submit them in the order in which you did them, just because we do automate so much. Again, we do automate transitions through phases, through chaining, through sequential goals. So really we need that data in order. So we can do that for you. So I'm going to select a date and a time. You can tell I'm kind of a night owl because those are the times they are right now. And now you can see all of your goals appear. All right, so here we have our behaviors for decrease, and then we have our behaviors for increase, because behaviors for decrease you might kind of need in a pinch. You don't want to go kind of sifting through a bunch of programs to find those, because you probably want to focus on the safety of everybody, including your client. All right, so you can see this progress section here. This is just going to give you a little snapshot of what you've done. This is actually data on you. So no data doesn't mean that aggression didn't occur. It means you didn't track it. So we're never going to implicitly kind of just put a 0 where it doesn't belong if we're not 1,000% sure that it goes on your graph. So if aggression doesn't happen, you just open and close. Now you get that 0. So make sure if it doesn't happen, you put that 0 there. But if it did actually happen, you can open it up. You can even see that we're in baseline right now, so we're kind of, behaving as we would in baseline. And then, you can just clickety-clack as many times as it happens, or if, just kidding, that last one was a high five, not really an initiation of aggression. And if you're ever not sure kind of what aggression means, hit this question mark, and anything that was specified on the form would be there, including operational definitions, non-examples, antecedent strategies. So there's a lot of information here that you can access in session to make sure you're really kind of doing your job right, and helping your kids progress as quickly as possible. All right, next we have a duration goal. So we just start the timer at the onset of the behavior, and then we stop it. And you can do this as many times as you like. You can even bounce around between programs because, kids do more than one thing at a time sometimes. And then we can stop it. And if ever you accidentally leave a timer running for way too long and, the value here doesn't really represent the behavior anymore, you can just clear it out. You don't have to commit to that. Or if for whatever reason you didn't have your device handy at the onset of the behavior, you can actually just kind of type in that value as well. And then after that, if there's no timer running, it'll just tell you however many times something happened. All right, so here we have our 2 trials list, so we're just going to open one of them. So you can see here we set minimum trials to 1, which just means we're just getting 1 of each target. And we are kind of tracking these concurrently. And what we're going to use for mastery is that percent of a whole list. If we wanted to track this one as well, great. If in the middle of your session, the child has to use the bathroom, and then you come back and you're like, what was I doing? I'm not sure if I finished. We do require complete data in order to submit, so that doesn't mean you have to run every single program every single time, but anything that you do run, you do have to finish. So you can't leave with timers running, for example, and also you do have to meet minimum trial requirements. So, track all of the targets that are required if you are running a trials or task analysis program. But you can see here in the progress section, 2 of 3 scored. These numbers are not equal, thus you are not done. So let's go in there and finish that last one. If you wanted to really be sure that, we have accurate data, you want to run a few more trials just to kind of get some more data, we can just add another one in the moment, as many times as you like, really. And if you don't have time for that last round, you can also just remove it. We can always remove down to whatever the minimum was set to. Here's a task analysis for hand washing. Both trials and task analysis programs offer 2 types of data collection, so either correct or incorrect, like you just saw with trials, as well as a drop down with prompt level, if that is what you want to track to see kind of how much help was required in order to get the job done. So you can see here, we're only on the first step because we're in forward chaining with this task analysis. And let's say they required a verbal prompt. And that was the most obtrusive we had to get to kind of help them turn the water on. If your staff has no idea what these letters mean, we have a key right here and they can actually up their own prompts. And then they can even fade them because prompt fading is important. If it's kind of a sticky day, you can always go in and wash hands again. So we can add another trial as we go, or we can remove it if it turns out they just kind of wiped their hands on their pants instead. That's okay. All right, and then here is an interval recording program. So we're going to hit the plus. We're just going to start that, and it's going to give you a countdown telling you when this interval is going to be over, and then it'll give you a new one. You can always go back and mark it or unmark it. That's okay. And you also have a countdown showing here. And then it's almost done. Don't worry, it's a 20-second one, so it's not very long. Alrighty, and as soon as it's done, you can see it tells you a percent of intervals. I did promise that I would show you what this looks like on a smaller device. So I'm just going to squish it down and you can see it's just fine. And then we're going to unsquish it so it's big and strong again. Alrighty, and then here we have all of our custom notes fields. So yeah, we can just write some words here, literal words even. Click some options here, use the drop down, maybe write a question. What's a question? Sorry, I can't think of a question right now. It's late. Or spell question, apparently. Alrighty, and then even a signature or a cat. Or not, just kidding. And submit. Then it'll tell you session submitted. After that, let's actually look at some graphs because I'm assuming that is really important for not only progress but also funding sources. So let's look at this one right here. So if you wanted to see all graphs at once, you would go to client data and just hit current graphs. And then you just kind of scroll down to your heart's content and look at every single graph. You'll notice this program looks a little familiar, right? That colors program. It did have 2 separate lists, and each list is going to be graphed separately because each trials list does go through the phases kind of independently of the other. Their only dependency is that one has to be mastered in order for the other one to be initiated. So here's that second list, and then here's a task analysis, and you can see some nice little progress here. And then here's an interval recording program, and look, regression. And then here's a duration one, and you'll notice for duration, we will show you not only the total duration, but also average duration per occurrence, as well as for for frequency programs. Not only do we show you total frequency, but we will also show you rate, and that's calculated by your session start time and end time. And you've got a little legend here that says rate per hour. Mind you, our graphs are going to change within the next few weeks, allowing you with a lot more flexibility in terms of you can make them black and white, you can select certain date ranges, and you can add custom phase lines to either one or many graphs. And you'll even be able to kind of narrow this down so you can either show, just frequency, just rate, or both. And same goes for those duration options as well. So you'll have a lot more flexibility with your data coming really soon. We're almost done building it. Let's see what else. If we wanted to go over here, B.F. Skinner's notes, here's a little name drop. So if we wanted to go in and read some of the notes that people have written about B.F. Skinner's sessions, so you would just kind of click on, the date and the name of the person who wrote it. And this is exactly where that email the supervisor gets with a question gets referred to. So they wouldn't actually get the entire note because we don't know if your email service is HIPAA compliant, but you'll get like a very general client identifier, date, and the name of the person. But then you can go in and read exactly, the questions that they asked. You can go in and edit your notes if you need to. Anything but the signature pretty much. You can even delete it. Just make sure if you're deleting a session note, you're also deleting any corresponding session data. If you want to, instead of kind of clicking about a million times, you can just hit printable notes, and then you can look at every single note that occurred for that client. And this is very easily printable. If we wanted to review how the entire session went instead, we can just go to session overviews. And if we wanted to see, for example, how March 1st went, we can see not only the note that was written, but also any data that was taken that day. So it really kind of gives you the bigger picture of how these things could be related to these things and vice versa. And then we've also got some program statistics. So if we wanted to learn some more about reading behavior, for example, so this is a duration program. If there were multiple durations, obviously that's not going to be shown on your graph. But if you want kind of the nitty-gritty breakdown, you would hit raw data, and then it does give you a spreadsheet with as pretty much more data than you can handle. So, if it's a duration program, it'll tell you each and every single instance and who it was with and total what they equaled out to. Or for task analysis, for example, or trials, it'll tell you each and every single step and however many trials they did it, so you can see each individual response and then which prompt level was used, or if it was correct or incorrect, and who took the data that day. And it'll give you a few kind of added metrics that we've added there. So it really does tell you quite a bit. And it really kind of helps you fill in those training gaps so you can see who took the data that day as well. What else? And then we've got treatment planning. So I'm actually going to use this one because there are prettier graphs involved. So I'm going to go to client data. I'm going to go to treatment plans, and this is super cool because it is going to generate a nice little PDF. So we're going to hit the plus here. This is just a little disclaimer asking you, hey, are your forms good to go? Because it is going to pull as much information as it can get from all over the place. So any program form that you filled out for this client, any data that you have, etc., that's all going to be there. But it's going to take a snapshot of how it is in this exact moment in time. So it's just asking you to make sure anything that you want included is there. There are ways to exclude things as well. So if you don't really care about, the form fields, then you're good to go. Alrighty, so we'll just select the date. And you can see here, there are all kinds of fields. So every field that you notice here, it's not required, with the exception of the date. That is the only thing actually required within this entire PDF setup. So, but we do kind of make it easier for newer providers to have a place to kind of put all this information and kind of really build a quality treatment plan. So you can talk about patient info, provider info, background, guardian involvement, coordination of care, barriers, the treatment, the assessment, fading criteria and plan. We even give you examples of what to include there. So I've been through, quite a few insurance reviews. So I've really tried to kind of put that experience into this to help people kind of down the line so they can have more success with theirs. So kids get the funding they need. And then after that, it actually tries its very best to sort all of the programs, but if it's not a good fit, we can always move them. So you can see anything for decreases here, then anything mastered, it looks like nothing's mastered. In progress, we have these, anything upcoming, etc. And then apparently nothing else here, but you can always move it. So if, for example, we deemed this colors program to be mastered, then we would just put it in the mastered section. And now you can see it got moved there. You can also put things in discontinued or even hidden so they don't even show up in the report at all. And then after that, if you wanted to go in and narrate anything here, so you can talk about the diagnostic criteria you're targeting with this goal, a reference to the assessment that